I was born without a home for some mom-ents, with the absence that others are always used to. Reduced to a son without the clouds, or a son without an ounce of a mother. Father in the pen like he's trying to be left without righting any wrongs. My mom's lost in the sky, blind to my eyes, disguised as an angel, and maybe I'll never know. But I'll be honest, that's all I pray for. Let's rewind back to the lines of my dad. He was a fad. Came and went like the consequences of karma. Harmed us in too many ways that I don't wish to show. Maybe because I never know if he's being real or really just telling a story. Making it glory for his sorry mass, science for the heart, in order to matter in the ions of my whole, left to be filled like the W wasn't for us. I'm speaking for my brother and others who took the L, lost and forgotten to mend their own scars. I still look up at the stars and wish my first words were mom, but regardless, I've been told it was moon. Ruins for my hate, movies for my love. I'll take what I can and regain my composure. I rethink about it, 'cause I know all I needed is some closure. Relocating my culture, so let's continue with the verse. What I thought was a curse was a landmark for the source of peace. Full, in hugs and kisses, a reborn soul with new callings, crawling into new dimensions, extended arms that seem to understand how to heal my malnourished aura. A new like martyr to matter in my scattered ventures, 'cause before her I was the youngest of 7 cousins, living with the only blood family I've learned was honest, truth-telling, spelling out every misplaced scene of my biography. Modesty was our way of living. Aunty on her own, but she made it without much to put in. Fusion of powerful religion and maybe just a lot of faith. As time seemed to run out, someone came into place. A Peace Corps member to remember. Embers of new hopes like the fire in my steps would light the way for an even better heaven. My brethren and the other 7 were left to be saved. But my new mother and I made sure to wait back. We made sure to always look behind, find a way to bless our beginnings, and believe in our next steps. We both found someone to make our 4 walls complete, and it was a great escape from my wondering questions. Relations to ship us into better adventures, ventures that begin to mention new beginnings, better endings than others could have imagined. We'd traveled the world in the country, thinking our home was full of famine, hunger for another abode, body for the soul, so we were given a male figure. Go figure, how silly figures add up to the American dream, or so it seems, but let's take it slow. Before we were on the road to the US of A, we made our way into a place I remember could heal my pains, a frame with 3 faces that replaced the ones I didn't have. My new father was amazing. I'm saying, we made it happen so magically. Frantically was no longer a way of walking, sparking an inspiration. And then, a sister was an indication on how I would later learn to treat queens. We created a team through my mom's traveling friends and my pop's relatives that could relate to us. They made room for us to be housed in their hearts, a start of a new way of living. So like corners, we were a force of 4 that held their place, made space for love to grow, showed the world what a family could be made of. And even though we had our security unsecured or moments that could have broken us, we made it through. But those little details are just retail, sold for those who want me to retell small pieces of the whole puzzle. So let's progress on to what happened next. We decided to fly over landmarks to make marks in a new land, hands that reached to help us, expressed to us that they were familiar. And in these milieus, we learned to adapt to the last name of history. Mystery views, 'cause my eyes had never seen the way of living that was vivid everywhere I went. Spent most of my times growing up in confusion, a fusion or a fission, depending on the visions you choose to see. I was Hispanish, with anguish, a boy growing up in another language. Couldn't understand why my friends weren't real just 'cause they couldn't say the same words. Verbs. Couldn't be the same for different cultures either. Let's include that my futures weren't the same as my neighbors or even some of my saviors. That's when my adoption became more apparent. Apparently my parents weren't supposed to be sharing this freedom of living with my grieving past that made it across borders. Let me rephrase, 'cause not everyone was the same. I did have those who made sure we weren't insane for moving to this location. Regardless, it felt like a vacation from the broken pieces of dirt roads I was left to explore for most of my growing moments. Learning that you had to have tough skin 'cause you were different. Instances of that were revealed for most of my life. And during my times of strife, I would strive to come home with a smile, 'cause while that was going on, within, things were breaking without love, or maybe compassion. Actions of my guardians would change the course. The American dream that I had come to understand was going to be left adrift, a switch of paths that would lead me to my mask. We became broken and took to our own ways, misplaced our home and housed our own. But every so often we visit the other with good grounds, found that we'd appreciate the times much better because it wasn't something that always occurred. Searched for a cure so we could procure peace. Yet my sis and I were released to make our own decisions on and of loving from afar. It went on like that for some moments or maybe even years, but during the times of happenings everything seems to fast forward. Into it froze for me on the day I learned Pops wasn't going to return from his flight back home. My brother from another mother took my hole and created more holes than I thought I could ever have. But I had to continue to laugh for my little sis who was daddy's little girl. Her world became twisted, misty eyes, and I couldn't decide when to be angry, so instead I rose to be the man of the house. Not like I wasn't doing that already. But facts are fact, and in fact it became more apparent then, when he decided to depart, and sparked more of an angry side inside of me. And I already knew I had some type of fire in me, even before that ever happened, but the map towards my heart was more blocked than detours that came to an end. I spent my time growing up with years of redness, endless nights that were spent feeling like I was made of nothing. No atoms, no atom to save my soul, 'cause even prayers made me rose red, fiery, mighty, but in ways that made others cringe. I was starting to have a thing for pain. My eyes said it all, a deathly stare that was compared to killers. And it showed even more when I came back from visiting my homeland. I came home hoping for better news, but truth be told, the truth was worse. I was told that I had a stepdad, which just seemed unreal. I had to deal with going to a new school and a feud of who was who. He moved in sooner than the news had even sunk in. So there we were, a mixture of fixtures that didn't fix us, but instead depicted us as crazy. His daughter and I were in the same position, hating one another's parents' spouse that was housing the home we became to think was our own. And I gotta say that I was more alarmed by the fact that he was disrespectful from the get-go. It was set for destruction before it began, but sometimes love can blind you so well that all you see are the good scenes, dreams pretty much. Such nightmares for me though, I would seek for peaceful sequels, wishing that they wouldn't equal the rituals of residue. Something not overdue, but something I didn't want to return into our lives. So he and I would argue about who was right, but imagine a grown man trying to uppercut the youngin' who had become what he never would be. A man to others, but a little kid to the ones under the roof. There was never enough proof to prove my sanity, so it went on for years, and my fear was more so for my queens. I didn't want them to feel the anger and hatred that he would bring. But things weren't that way when there was so much confusion and misunderstanding, mishandling of information, which made me feel unheard, so I would go unseen, leaving or getting kicked out. Either way, it always ended with lots of shouts and words that would break more than bones, so I no longer felt like I ever had a home. Until finally, after too many disputes, I was sent to live with other relatives who were sensitive to the issues, but not really knowing the truth since it was skewed. Everything was being viewed through a screen, and I gotta admit I didn't make it any easier. I was just filled with hatred towards the world. I dream of days when I could end my times on this globe, evolve as a better being, and leaving my body to be cried over. I was tired of being a soldier. This went on for so many days, and there were instances when I was graced or grazed with death. Either way, I was blessed to continue living. Even if I wasn't believing that I had a reason to breathe, I would receive blessings even if I hated praying. And I kept saying, how can God continue to try to be funny? Funny thing is that I was being taken care of, spared of destruction and full of reconstruction, instructed to defy the struggles and shake the dust on my hopes and dreams. And so it became more than one lesson learned, especially after realizing that during my senior year I almost dropped out of school. I felt like a fool and didn't want to continue. Somehow, I knew I could endure one more year, and then my goal was to be recruited by the Marines. I had signed my name and was ready to get redeemed, recovered by payments, even if it meant I was put to my deathbed through bullets. At least my mom would find my worth to be more than just leaving the house and more about being able to live with money. Sunny days just weren't my pupils. I was learning to support others even when within I felt like dying. I kept on trying to make things better for others and worse for myself, but before that time came, I was made aware of a spare life, hidden but somehow made more vivid. I received it with open questions, but once I saw the change I could make, it was like a revelation. After graduation, I ventured into Miami to give back to communities. It was there that I learned about recovery, discovery of self, a wealth of health, insights inside and outside sights like I could find my future in dreams. I began to see a new world like I had been blind forever. I felt revered and respected for seconds and for sections of my heart. I mean, for my compassion, and although my actions didn't show it, I made for a great human being. And still, to this day, I have my issues on how much of it I am, but that's for another time. Rewind. When I was there, I learned to appreciate the little pieces. I was released to a universe of spare moments that drifted into heaven, and when I recognized the magic, all the tragic moments were olden components that once were composed in my life became ancient artifacts, ancient arctic acts that now melted hearts. I decided to recite these current arts of divinity through prayer, acceptance, and daily recognition. On a mission to spread it back to those I loved, I went ahead and moved back home, only to learn that it was still the same as when I left without looking back. In fact, it hurt me so much because I had gone without a way to save them. I did my best to grace them with greatness. I know for a fact that it wasn't that made it work, but somehow we were able to leave, and we left at night. I'm telling you, the sights that we saw, it was moms and sisters and myself who had to pack the car and start afresh. Life was a mess for a minute, but things worked out. We were about to start alone but together, merging a lifestyle that would bring us closer, a closure to living with the decisions that had become missed takes that had caused such commotion, but solutions were becoming. Once again, we moved away to our final destination. We thought that this was it, and we'd begin to stay stable, able, maybe. We were dreaming, and it seemed so real. We had a roof. I was proof of going back to school, and the sisters and I were becoming family again. I was creating bridges that I could cross so that they didn't feel like I was just visiting the city. Pretty views continued to arise, smiles in the eyes, 'cause we were delighted to be able to see into the distance. It was then that we knew we could withstand anything, especially less poignant. Jointly, we created something we've always wanted, no longer haunted with our fears of futuristic fantasies. We would always give thanks to our majesty. Honestly, we became more thankful for everything in itself, found a way to be blessed by giving blessings to those we came across, and across those paths we made our own. I found myself always giving back, and that is how I'd find myself in the right places at the right times, and just like that, I was given the opportunity to work in another state. I wasn't sure which decision to make since I had just helped create a better abode, but I knew my calling. Without stalling, I took the steps to prep for a flight onward, and with my familiar support, I've been able to support them from afar. Without them, I'd be the same from long before, an eyesore, but for sure a better view now than the past. I couldn't be prouder than seeing my mom have class with happiness, lessons of the heart that heal themselves and help the best, but at the same time give her pain and gray skies a rest. Then there's my sisters who are making sure they enjoy the present to present themselves as divine ladies later on. And my pops, well, he's got his own, and we made some progress, so let's be honest, it'll come a time when we'll all end in the same page. Replace all our adventures with relaxation and maybe even a mansion or two. A home sweet home that comes with all the prices to pay. One day I'll be able to relay all the relays that we went through to win the race. But for now, I'll enjoy this new pace and space out into the stars when I'm missing myself and knowing I need some motivation. Thank you to these godly sensations and evaluations, elevations, revelations, imaginations that helped me appreciate the maze I was graced with. So inshallah, ya Baha'u'llah, gracias a Dios, and namaste. Peace.